On today's show, Shannon Hamaker is on a mission to help people shed the layers of misunderstanding around sexuality and intimacy, unlocking the magic that comes with self-discovery and deeper connection. What began as a personal journey to enhance her 19-year marriage has transformed into a movement to support others in embracing their sexual wellness. Welcome to Loving Without Boundaries, where we hear inspiring stories, share actionable advice, and talk about the challenges and the joys of ethical non-monogamy and polyamory. I'm your host, Kitty Shambliss. Coming up, my conversation with Mike Barsanian. Welcome back to Loving Without Boundaries, where I am absolutely delighted to be here with Shannon Hamaker, who I got to meet this year. Actually, it was in January at Interfusion Festival, which is in the Washington, D.C. area. I believe technically it was in Arlington, Virginia, not far from where I live. And it was the first time I ever went there. It was recommended to me by two of my clients. So I thought I should definitely just check this out. And that's where I got to meet Shannon, which was super cool. So welcome to the show and welcome to the conversation. I'm thrilled to be able to talk to you today.
Thank you, Kitty. Yes, it was so fun to meet you there. What a cool experience Interfusion was too, especially as it relates to the topic that we're going to be talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. And I forget, was that your first time there too?
It was.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
How neat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, we were both virgins to the Interfusion Festival experience, but yeah, it was very, very interesting and very fun. So I'd love it if you'd introduce yourself to our listeners in your own words in a way that feels authentic to you.
I'm Shannon Hamaker, and I've been a sexual health coach for over 20 years, but sexual health educator first, and learned a lot about women and couples and relationships through direct sales. Actually, I found that one of the easiest ways to get to know people was through doing those parties, those pure romance parties.
Oh, yes.
Because I grew up in the buckle of the Bible Belt in the South, and going to people's living rooms and having their friends come over and have conversations about sex toys and lubricants and all of those things, it really just filled me up, and I couldn't think of another way to be able to talk about these things. I always had this curiosity about sex and why people didn't talk about it, and relationships, and just always super curious about the dynamics. And so when I had this option to be a sexual health educator after getting my degree in human development, it just seemed like a great step. So I did that for years. And then as I got to be older, I've been married now for 20 years. And about year 14, 15, I just started to notice there was more conversation with people at my parties and presentations about open relationships. I had people asking about swinging. I actually had this was so fun. One of my first intros to that world was a group of women from a local church, a very conservative Christian church. And this woman came into the shopping room, is what we called it, where, I do a presentation, and afterwards they come back into the shopping room and they ask any question that they want confidentially. So she mentioned that her and her husband were in an open relationship and they went to these swinger parties, and I was blown away. I knew that those things existed, but I didn't know that I would ever meet someone that was in that space. So as that kind of those questions started to come in a little bit more, I started to do more research and reading books and taking classes. And then in my experience with my partner and my husband, it has been the best learning lesson, the best personal growth, expansive life experience I've ever had. So that brings me to now doing coaching and retreats, trying to help couples navigate not necessarily open relationships, but just being completely confident in who they are and how they can support their nervous system and recognize patterns so that they can have more expansive relationships with themselves and with their partners.
Beautiful. I love that. And I love how you really ended on that idea of just having expansive relationships in whatever way works for them, so that
Yes.
they can step into their most self-actualized self. Yeah.
Absolutely. We need everyone on this planet to be the authentic version of who they were meant to be,
hmm
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I totally
Yeah.
believe that. And I think there's so many people that aren't, whether it's through fear or conditioning or judgment from society, whatever it is. So I really
Mhm.
appreciate the work that you do today and what the steps that brought you to do this work here today. So thank you for that.
Me too. I never would have thought that it would have led to this, but it just all makes so much sense. I just followed that curiosity and that knowing, and here we
Mhm.
are.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's funny you mentioned about the pure joy sex toy parties because when I got married, which was almost 19 years ago, I didn't want to have the traditional bridal party that seems so stale and boring. And we actually had somebody come in and show us sex toys, and I just had a ball doing that for my bridal shower. And I even thought about doing that myself for a while, but I think that's really cool that you did that for how many years was it?
It was about 20 years. I think it was a
Wow.
total of 19. And yeah, I still do sexual health education presentations in my local community for group homes and recovery centers where we talk about healthy
Oh,
relationships, and we'll talk about toys and things like that. Wherever
yeah.
people want me to talk about sex, I'll do that. But yeah,
That's
it's
neat.
evolved.
Yeah. And I wanted to comment too, same as you, one thing you and I have in common is when I was like in high school, in college, I always wanted to talk about sex and kissing and, being in relationships. And I just found that most of my friends and just people in general didn't want to talk about it. And I was also curious about that. And I think it's one of the reasons that led me to create a podcast because I was like, I want to just have the conversations openly that other people don't seem to want to have and find other folks like yourself who also want to have those conversations with me.
Right. And thank goodness that's been part of what has led me to being in this space more. Were podcasts during that time where we were having so many challenges in our marriage.
Mm,
And I didn't realize how codependent we were. And I didn't realize how burnt out I was. And thanks to these podcasts that, these conversations around open relationships and polyamory and conscious uncoupling, I
mm,
remember one of the most pivotal moments in my journey was realizing that I had this idea that if our marriage didn't work out, there was going to be a divorce and our kids were going to be doomed and they were going to have divorces because we have had hardly any divorces in our family. So I was holding
mm,
on to this narrative that wasn't necessarily true. And there were so many different options available. And I learned that through podcasting. And I heard a podcast on conscious uncoupling. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's another way. It doesn't have to be this horrible, nasty divorce situation. It can be a very loving,
mm,
you know, way to move forward and still have honor and reverence for the relationship that we had. And I'm
mhm.
glad it didn't end up that way. We still are together, but just having that option was such a beautiful gift.
Mm. I
Yeah.
recently read that book myself, Conscious Uncoupling, and it was recommended to me actually by a client who was in their 70s and they'd been married 44 years. And they came to work with me to see if one of them identified more as monogamous, the other one more as wanting an open relationship or polyamory. And they wanted to see if they could figure it out. And they just really showed up, did a lot of work for about a year and a half, and that helped the wife of the couple to gain more confidence and to get more doubt into her authentic truth. And they ended up deciding amicably to get divorced. And they're still really great friends and sometimes lovers. So they just in their
Love
case,
it.
they just got to redefine what it meant for them and also like financially what made the most sense because obviously they were empty nesters at the time that they were in their 70s. So it's just neat to think about how it doesn't have to mean a closing, it can mean an opening, and we get to be creative about how we move forward and what the next chapter looks like. So, what worked
Yeah.
for you might work for somebody else, or it might be a creative solution in a different way for another couple, or yeah.
Right. And I love the process that it takes you through. And this is actually something that I use with my clients now is if I have like on the fencers, are we staying together or are
Yeah.
we, parting ways? And the whole first part is claiming that radical self-responsibility of the part that you played
Hmm.
and recognizing again the patterns that you played to get to where you are so that
Hmm.
when you go into a new relationship, should you choose, you're not taking that baggage into the next relationship. And honestly, if you have kids, if you don't get it figured out now, you're just kind of giving them that baggage of like, sorry, couldn't
Hmm.
figure it out. Good luck with, good luck with all that. See how those patterns work for you.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I love that
Yeah.
process.
Me too. I actually took myself through that process and I thought it was fascinating because I thought I'd done so much work on myself, but I was able to uncover how there was still some weeds down there that I picked up from my parents who were together their whole lives till death do they part. But that didn't mean that they were modeling necessarily a really healthy relationship. And I was able to see how I picked up different beliefs that I was carrying forward and so that I could then do something about it. Like once you become
Mhm.
aware of those patterns. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I love that, Kitty. And that's what I do as well is understanding the patterns logically, but sometimes your brain, your adult brain knows, "Oh, I see mom did that and I'm doing the same thing that she did and I'm doing the same thing that she did in my relationship." And so now what I get to do is learn to give myself the space to respond and not react. And so I
Hmm.
support people with the nervous system and understanding this idea of the 5 personality patterns
Hmm.
and how we show up in overwhelm and how it affects our relationships. And this has been super supportive for those that are in the space of open marriages and polyamorous
Hmm.
relationships because you're dealing with a lot of patterns. And if you're not grounded in who you are, it can be challenging to know what's mine, what's yours. Do I need support with this? I don't think I do. Is this mine to handle? And feeling confident that you can hold yourself in those challenging times when
Hmm.
emotions come up.
Right. Which can
Yeah.
also increase confidence, a sense of inner strength and security and that place of coming to that personal responsibility of this is my stuff to work on, so instead of pointing fingers at the other parties. I really love that. So I'd love to start diving into that. You mentioned a couple times now that the nervous system support and those 5 personality patterns we talked about before we started recording. I'd love it if
Mhm.
you could expand on that because I think that will be really helpful for our listeners.
Yes, I would love to. It's been so helpful to understand, first of all, the nervous system and how everything is connected. Like, if you are in a conversation with a partner or anyone for that matter, and you feel overwhelmed, meaning you may disassociate or you feel reactive or you feel like you are unable to fully process what's going on, you're not fully
Mhm.
present, then it's not worth having a conversation. So I heard someone say, if you are not having a regulated conversation, you're talking about how you're going to regulate your nervous system. Because I don't know if you've had this happen in your coaching. I imagine you have, where you hear 2 stories from each partner and you're like, were they even in the same room? It doesn't sound like the same thing happened. They are just sharing it from a perspective that's totally different. And that's because when the nervous system is overwhelmed and you're not within the window of tolerance
Mhm.
of, there's that window of tolerance, which I kind of think of as like a fuel tank of patience and presence. And when we are moving through our very busy world, we can sometimes feel overwhelmed and that window of tolerance just shuts down or you lose that fuel to your patience tank. And when that nervous system is not supported, everything else goes offline. So your digestive system, and a lot of us will go into fight or flight in those major instances that are visible, like, oh my gosh, I almost got sideswiped by a car. And oh, that's what happened. But when we are dealing with relationships and patterns and things that we learned as a child that maybe weren't processed, that's when it can show up in deceiving ways that are appropriate as far as our culture goes. So disassociating is okay because you can still be there physically, but you're like not really fully emotionally present. So I can go through the 5 personality patterns as it relates to relationships. And
that would be amazing.
It's taken from Stephen Kessler. He's a psychotherapist, and he wrote a book. It's fantastic, especially if you like the clinical kind of rundown. I highly recommend the book because it goes through each pattern in detail so much that there's like an hour per pattern. And as he shares, it's just super powerful. So a couple of things about these patterns: they are not who we are, it's what we learned. So it's what we learned to stay safe in our bodies as kids. As kids, we often take these patterns on because it helps us feel like we are loved and we aren't going to be kicked out of the so-called tribe, our family growing up. So there are 5 different types, and we learn them as we develop as kids. So for some people, they may have one that's that like they're primary, that they go to this pattern. Sometimes there's a secondary and even a third or tertiary, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
And so they are basically depending on who you are interacting with and who you feel like you're safe with. That's how they show up. So the first one is called the leaving pattern. And this pattern is typically, the onset is as a newborn or sometimes even in utero. So if mom had a very traumatic birth, or maybe mom didn't want to have the baby, or there was a lot of stress around the birth of the baby, that baby can take on this leaving pattern, which is, this is a big, scary world. It doesn't feel safe. And so I'm going to retreat back into wherever I came from, like the spirit world, the soul. So this is a little more spiritual. Go with me on this and see what resonates best for you. But so for the leaving pattern, they feel scared by big, strong energies. They often say things like, I don't feel like I belong here. I feel like I'm on the wrong planet. I don't want to be here anymore. They feel unsafe by a lot of noise and big energies. And they will try to feel safe by withdrawing, like physically leaving, or they may try to disassociate by, staying in their head. They will keep it abstract and very general, very playful and light and impersonal. And that way they don't have to get too deep into, they don't want to trigger any big, scary emotions. So that's the leaving pattern. And that, as you can imagine, in relationship and in sex, the person will physically leave their body. So I work with a lot of people that, especially women, who learn to just leave their body energetically. The energy goes up and out. So they typically will have a thin body type. And a lot of people that are endurance runners run the leaving pattern. And so, for example, I have one woman that I worked with, and she ran the leaving pattern for a long time and recently went on a run and said, I could not believe all the birds I saw. I couldn't believe the nature sounds and the things that, like, I was present for the entire run, because she would just leave her body before. So in relationship, also, with, if there's a big, strong energy, you may find that that person will have a hard time maintaining eye contact. They may have their eyes may kind of dart, like looking for a way to leave the room. And you'll know, like, hey, you're safe to be here. Like, there's things that you can say to each pattern and support them in feeling grounded, because ultimately all of these patterns are just being run by the little version of whoever you're talking to. So having compassion and curiosity for your partner can be so helpful. So that's the leaving pattern. Is that any questions on that one?
No, I definitely, I've seen that in one or more of my partners. Like, I'm Italian, so sometimes I can have really big energy and I use my hands a lot. And sometimes I can almost see a deer in the headlights look that they might have, because I don't quite know what to do with that energy. Yeah. So I think that I can definitely see it in my own life. Yeah.
Yes. And that's what my husband runs, is the leaving
Mm.
pattern. And there are gifts to each one too.
Mm. Mm.
So very creative. My husband's a graphic designer.
Oh, cool.
He's he can keep things light and playful, and we can have, he can be very sensual. So there's gifts to each pattern too. And I'll mention those along the way. But knowing that when he would get overwhelmed and we would have a conversation, I could see where he would physically leave. And sometimes he would be like, or not physically, but energetically leave. And he would say, yeah, that sounds good. But he was just kind of going along to get along because he didn't want to have any conflict.
Right.
So those were times for me to say, you know what, let me give you, I feel like maybe we need a few minutes to process. We don't have to figure this out right now.
Mm-hmm.
Can we regroup after dinner? And just giving him that process time, and myself too, because my pattern is like wanting to feel that heart connection. And that's leading us into the next one, which is merging.
Good. Merging,
yes.
Merging. Mm-hmm.
So the merging pattern is typically, the onset is during the time where you need that nurturing. So as an infant, maybe this infant didn't get enough breast milk or emotional support. Maybe mom had postpartum challenges, and they feel scared by that loss of heart connection, that fear of abandonment or rejection. They fear having conflict with others or disappointing others. Oftentimes they have this inability to feel full. And so they try to feel safer by merging with others. So getting others to meet their needs. Mm-hmm. So maintaining heart connection to others. They will accommodate or appease or flatter. They will get others to take care of them. So you may hear your coaching clients say, if he would just do this, or if she would just do this. So they may project their needs onto others. And then there's like a little subcategory that often happens with this pattern, and that is where they will ignore their own needs and take care of others. So in my experience, I noticed my husband was not there energetically. I didn't feel his heart. I didn't feel that heart connection. And so I was like, what do we need to do to get this back? Do we need to go to therapy? What if we went on vacation? It was all about him. And there's that codependency, that loss of heart connection, fear. And I recognized, I get to take care of myself. I can give him space to take care of himself while I learn how to feel confident with myself without having to be validated or have that full heart connection from him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Fascinating. Yeah, I can see myself in that one, similar to you as well. Yeah.
So a lot of people in the coaching and healing space are often run this pattern because they love helping others. Mm-hmm. And again, that's a beautiful gift that we have, but recognizing when it's yours to fix, because just because we can doesn't mean that we need to. And oftentimes I will notice when someone's talking about a relationship or sex or something to that nature, I'll notice a pull from my chest like, oh, I can help you, because it's often this giving to get. It makes me feel good and valued when I'm giving. And oftentimes it's landing on deaf ears if they're not asking. So I have to remind myself, like if you're saying something about a challenge that you're having, I may say, Kitty, are you open to a suggestion? Right. Mm-hmm. And I'll say that to my husband now. And sometimes he's like, no, I just want to vent. Mm-hmm. And I'll say, thank you for honoring your needs.
Yeah. That's a great, simple way to say that. Are you open to a suggestion to, show up again with curiosity and compassion, and also respecting where the other person is at.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yes. Even though I feel like I know the answer, right?
Right. They might not be ready to receive the answer. Right. So then, like you said, it would fall on deaf ears.
Yes. And also the gift that I'm giving my partner when I am able to say, okay, you don't need my support, is that I'm giving him the space to figure it out on his own so he can build confidence in that space, where maybe if I would have done that thing for him, it wouldn't have really translated, and he would have that same problem again later down the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very true. Yeah. So letting the other person build their own skill set, stand on their own 2 feet instead of taking away that opportunity for growth. Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
Right. Yeah. So the next pattern is the enduring pattern. And these people typically had the onset of this pattern. They took this on during toddler ages. So that age where you start to express your autonomy, where you want to try new things, wear new things, eat different things. And they often were told, no, you can't get
Mm.
up off the potty until you go to the bathroom, or you have to finish your peas. You can't get up from the table until you finish your food. Whatever it was, their autonomy was somehow taken away from them, and they learned to take their energy and take it in and down. So the leaving goes up and out. The merging comes from the chest, that heart, like, ugh, like you can feel the energy of that person wanting that connection. Enduring goes in and down. So these people feel solid.
Mm.
They fear a loss of buffering space around them. They fear, like, they fear being messed with. They fear
Mm.
having to deal with others' desires or needs, obligations, deadlines, tests, energetic probes or invasions. So they will often come to me and they'll say, I feel stuck. I just feel
Hmm.
stuck. And you'll notice maybe their energy, like their shoulders may be kind of slumped down. And they'll often say, and I do somatic work with people as well, where they identify emotions and what it feels like in the body. And oftentimes they'll say, I feel like I have a weight on my shoulders or a weight on my back. Like they feel like there's just this enduring energy that's just going in and down. And so what they will do to try to stay safe is to retreat into their own space. They will not respond or share any feelings. There's no self-expression, no self-action, no initiating. They just kind of say no at first. And there's this underlying cynicism, I guess this, no, not cynicism, passive aggressiveness. Like
Mm.
you can't make me. Or she's
Gotcha.
always trying to make me, he's always trying to make me do this. I'm not going to do it.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense because that's also a counterbalance from when they felt like their autonomy was taken away as a toddler. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So these people, they have a gift of being so loyal and so grounded. And that's why oftentimes you'll see the leaving will pair with an enduring because it feels good. The person that runs the leaving pattern may feel like they are held by this enduring pattern person. And the enduring pattern is like, oh, this person helps me feel a little more energized and a little more floaty.
Hmm. That's
So
fascinating. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's kind of fun to really identify, especially as a coach working with the couple, but
Yeah,
primarily
that one
first and
that one
foremost.
sounds a little bit to me like my husband if I'm thinking about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating, yeah, to just kind of think through each of these. I appreciate the thoughtful descriptions.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Mhm.
the enduring and leaving can look similar, but the energy is different. The leaving, they feel like kind of floatier. The enduring is just, and I feel like here in the South, I have kids that play sports. And when I'm on the field, I'll notice a lot of men, they have they have a heavier midsection where it
Mhm.
just feels like you could just stand next to them and they're not going to go anywhere. And
Right,
that can
right.
feel really good, but also frustrating when there's things that need to get moving. You need to move some energy around and try some
Mhm.
new things. And if they are feeling stuck, then it would be helpful for them to make the decision to take the initiative to try some different things.
Yeah, fascinating. Yeah, I'm definitely making things click for me when I'm just thinking about different people in my life and again, showing up with curiosity and compassion as I connect the dots there. Yeah,
It's a lot
very
of
cool.
fun. It's a
Yeah, it
lot of
is.
fun.
Mhm.
And it is so validating. I feel like every person now that I meet, I have this new lens of, you know, I wonder what they learned, not what's wrong with them, but I wonder what happened to them to where they felt like they needed to behave this way, especially the next one. The next one is the aggressive pattern. So the people that run aggressive, they often fear abandonment by others, betrayal by others. They fear a loss of control and feeling weak or needy or scared. They have challenges with vulnerability and feeling like they can trust and really let go and depend on others.
Mm-hmm.
And to stay safe, they will try to control the situation and dominate others. They can be very manipulative, but also very charming. Like the gift in the aggressive pattern is they can be very charismatic and they can detect any untruthfulness, and they will often track to see who has the power in the room and try to align with that person. And the people that run the aggressive pattern, what I have found in my experience in coaching people is they usually have a pretty chaotic childhood where maybe there was a lot of siblings and there was just a lot of chaos, and they felt like to be heard and felt they had to get big in their energy. They had to be energetically big wherever they went to let people know I'm in control here. You can't control me. And they also may have had challenges with like family members bringing in, like one woman, her mom brought a lot of men home and she didn't feel safe. And so she would get really big and she would protect her siblings. So lots of different ways that this can take on. And this is during that adolescent age.
Yeah, that, as you talked about that, when there's a particular friend in my life that's coming to mind who definitely had a lot of siblings. There was always some chaos going on in their house, which was fun a lot of the times, but sometimes wasn't so fun, you know?
Yes.
She was also a middle child. So I think that she also, you know, had to get big to get heard. And I can definitely see how that shows up today. So that's fascinating, including the dichotomy of the being charismatic, yet also a little bit manipulative. That's really fascinating. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. It's such I love this pattern so much. I feel a deeper connection when I learned. It used to be one that I would fear, like, can I hold this person in their healing journey? Can I support them? And ultimately, I've learned they just want to know that you can hold them. So they will test the boundaries. So in relationship, they will test, are you going to leave me? Because I don't want to be abandoned. And they often will project, you know, it's your fault. They can very much take on that victim kind of mentality. So the gift in loving them where they are at is just showing them that I'm going to love you no matter what. And also holding a boundary that you are not going to take any verbal or emotional abuse, like, you know, noting like when you feel manipulated and when you know that the pattern is running them as opposed to them being grounded and their nervous system being regulated. So taking note of when that happens and just showing up like I want to hear what you have to say, but I'm not in the place to receive it right now. I want to circle back. Maybe we can meet after dinner. How does that sound? And meeting them where they're at and letting them know that they can be aggressive, they can do these things, and they can still be loved in that.
Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. I'm sure, you know, we all want to be loved, but it's interesting how it shows up in each of the different personality patterns.
Yeah.
You know, how to kind of hold them energetically. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And they will try in coaching with me, they will say, well, I don't like Zoom. I like Google Meet. Like they'll try to see, you know, how they can control the situation, or I don't want you to take notes on the computer. Can you just take it? They'll have like little things. And sometimes I'm fine with that. And other times I'm like, well, this is how I work. I really feel like I know how I can support you, and just being like, I got you. I can help you through this. And then allowing them to kind of soften. Yeah.
Beautiful. Love that.
And then the last one is the rigid pattern. And the rigid pattern, they are often celebrated in our culture. There's all of these are celebrated in some ways, but I feel like the rigid pattern is like the ultimate celebrated in our culture because it's very much like checking off the boxes, performing well. There's rules, there's order, there's black and white, right and wrong, and their fear is chaos and disorder, imperfection, making a mistake, changes in plans, loss of control. They have a fear of being wrong or being blamed. They have a very tough time with uncontrolled play or spontaneity. And they also have a challenging time really connecting to their heart and surrendering into feelings. And that being said, the rigid people who run rigid are literally rigid. So they have a very rigid, sometimes very muscular body. And, the two types that people run will often merge in a certain body type. So it's not always so cut and dry. But typically speaking, in relationship, there's a right way and a wrong way. I don't want to look stupid. I want to do so. If we're doing sex because I've heard it's healthy for you and it's good for a relationship. So it's really trying to help these people learn how to connect to play and their heart, their inner child. Our inner child lives in our heart, right? So whenever we're feeling dysregulated or frustrated, being able to tend to that part of us, like, okay, imagining the little version of you popping up and saying, I don't feel understood. I'm afraid. You're going to leave me. I feel overwhelmed, whatever it is, and being able to just meet yourself where you're at and softening from that place. So the rigid pattern often has challenges like connecting with their inner child. They'll see them and they're like, I don't know if she really wants to hang out with me right now. But what they do to stay safe or feel safe is by doing all those things, by doing what's right, by doing what's expected. And of course, their gift in our world is systems, processes, being able to come up with organizational skills that help others. And in relationship, it can, if they are in overwhelm, they can often try to figure out like, where's the black and white? And as you know, especially in this world of relationships that we're both in, it's not all black and white.
Right.
There's so much gray and purple and glitter.
Exactly. Glitter and sparkles and unicorn farts.
Yes. Yes.
That's fascinating. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. It gives me a lot to think about. I'm sure for our listeners, a lot to think about too. And must be fascinating for you as you're coaching people to kind of suss out where different people are. So for the layperson who's listening who may be in some sort of a consensually non-monogamous relationship, maybe they're having some difficulty or some conflict in their dynamics, how can they, do you have any advice or tips on how they could think through the lens of these personality patterns to show up as the best version of them or to show up with more compassion or curiosity with their loved ones?
Yes. I think the first thing is, how are you supporting your nervous system? Are you, going back, are you in a regulated place? And that looks like it's different for everybody, but it can be putting your feet in the grass. If you are someone who runs the enduring pattern and you're like very solid and grounded already, it may be moving some energy around so that you can move things around a little bit. So there's hypoarousal and hyperarousal. If you find that you are someone who has anxious tendencies, like your heart races, you start to sweat, your mind, you can't get out of your mind, being able to take a moment and take a few deep breaths in through the nose quickly and then out through the mouth slowly can help you ground and just recognize, what pattern am I running right now? So when in relationship, if you find that you are overwhelmed, tend to your own needs first. So asking, like saying, even probably ahead of time, having like a a protocol ahead of time, not when it's happening, not in the chaos of like, oh, now's the time to regulate my nervous system. No, it's starting now, doing little things every day to just support your nervous system, putting your face in the sun, taking deep breaths, things like that. And then having a conversation with your partners and saying, I'm learning about these patterns and I'm curious when you notice if I'm in overwhelm, can you just gently like call me up, not call me out, but can you just say, I notice that you are having a hard time keeping eye contact. I notice that you seem like you are shut down. Like just the things that you notice from a place of compassion, almost imagining if you have nieces, nephews, friends, kids in your life, imagining this little child and talking to that little child, and not in a way of like demeaning, but just literally that's what's happening, is that version of that person is showing up and needs a little more compassion and love. So tending to your own needs first, having like a protocol when we're in overwhelm. This is what I imagine I would like to do. And then having a conversation with your partner. Some partners aren't open to this conversation right now. Or ever, and that's okay. So loving them where they are at, but also noticing like what your boundaries are. So just because someone runs the aggressive pattern and they're not into personal growth right now, they're not learning or growing at the same pace as you, does not mean that you need to completely break off the relationship. You can still hold boundaries though, and love them where they are at, and still protect yourself and keep yourself in a safe place and not feel enmeshed with their energy. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah. And I want to highlight what you said. I love that phrasing of calling somebody up instead of out. That's just so gentle and honoring the beautiful human being in front of you. And again, showing up with that compassion and caring and kindness. I love that.
Yes. Yeah. And one of the things that I did with my husband was I said, I would love for you to take note and just share with me if there's something that I do that you feel like I do when I'm stressed or overwhelmed that's kind of annoying to you or activates you. Can you just let me know? And he was like, okay. And I didn't say it from the place of, and I'll let you know too. That's not, it was, I actually didn't say that. I was genuinely curious, like, how can I show up as my best self so that I'm grounded enough to be who I am, no matter what is going on with my partner. And so he did that. There was one time where I said something in a snarky way, and he said, remember when you told me to tell you when something activates me? And he was very hesitant. Remember the leaping pattern. So he was like, I hope this is okay because you asked me to tell you and I'm telling you. And he told me, and it blew me away. I could not believe that I noticed that that was something my mom did. It was like this, I know it all. Like the underlying tone was, like, silly you, husband, don't you know?
Right. Yeah. And he picked up on that. And you picked up that from your mom. That's fascinating.
And so I definitely, as far as I know, I have not done that again. And I was so grateful because that is not the highest version of me showing up in relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
And I love that example of, even though you're a coach, you specialize in relationships and you're an educator and all of that, but you were still able to receive feedback and with grace, and you work together as a team, you and your husband. That was a beautiful example of that.
Yes. Yeah. And that's shown up too with jealousy and the things that we're navigating in our relationship as we have been creating a different version of what we thought it would be over the past 3 years. So yes, like continually checking in and just making sure, are we moving with intention? Are we moving with love and compassion? And taking note that the first step of war is defense. So the minute one person gets defensive, the other person can meet that defensiveness with compassion and just allowing that to soften without having to meet them in that defensiveness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. The first step of war is defense, because one of my go-tos is to get defensive. And I'm sure a lot of people listening can relate to that. And we might feel justified, in getting defensive, but at the same time, it's one step away from just, all out war when we do that.
Mm-hmm.
So being aware of those patterns within ourselves too is so super important. Yeah.
Yes. And how can you get curious with that part of you that feels like you have to be right?
Right.
Like, where did you learn that? And allowing that little version of you to just like, you're right. You're leading with love.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no wrong or right.
Yeah.
We're both on the same team. We're all on the same team,
Mm-hmm.
wanting everyone to show up feeling safe and valued and loved and things.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how you keep referring to the little version. I sometimes call it our lower self, but I like that term little version as well. Because, we've all got great qualities and then moments when we're not at our best. It's just normal. It's human, right?
Yeah. And that is a part of my work too, is the inner child work of tending to that inner child's needs, because that's the one that's popping up oftentimes with the jealousy or feeling like the fear of being abandoned. And I have this poster behind me. You can't, if you're listening, you can't see it, but it's a poster of like waves that just feel like they're tumultuous and big. And it's a really pretty picture, but imagining like your inner child when frustration, resentment, sadness, anger, any of the emotions pop up, and just imagining your little one in a sea of emotions and allowing yourself, because it can take as little as 90 seconds to let an emotion move through you. And sometimes we've been so conditioned to just hold it in, stuff it down, project it out. And that's when the patterns can take over, is when you can't hold it anymore. And so just allowing yourself, like maybe taking 90 seconds and punching a pillow, screaming into it, crying, and just imagining you pulling into that sea of emotion, and you have like a little lifeguard ring, and you have your inner child that's like in the ring with you, and you just swim back to shore and finding that peace and calm, like, I got you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so beautiful. I love that metaphor as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been so far just absolutely really revealing, educational. And by the way, I want to ask before I forget, what was the name of the book by Stephen Kessler?
It's the 5 personality patterns.
Oh, that's what it's called. Okay. Easy enough. Okay. Awesome. So I think this has been super helpful to have this overview, and I want to just thank you for just so graciously giving us your time and your knowledge. Before we start to wrap up the call, because I want to be respectful of your time and of course our listeners, is there any like parting message or anything else that you'd like to share?
I love to encourage people to insource their needs instead of outsourcing. So looking to others for that validation, or, I feel like we are all our best healers. And so being able to recognize that a lot of what we desire, this fulfilling life full of love and passion and excitement with lots of people, it's on the other side of the things that you don't want to feel. It's on the other side of the resentment and the frustration that comes up. So as these challenges come up, how can you continue to look at it as another chance to learn, another level of personal development, of self-actualization? And what a beautiful space for those of you that are listening and you're in open relationships. What an incredible gift it is to do this alongside others that are wanting to do the same. And, I feel like there's more support out there, and I've got retreats for women and retreats for couples that I've been doing. So if you want more information on how to break down this more inner child somatic emotion work, I'm here for it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And thanks for that message. And so if people are wanting to reach out, want to learn more about your retreats and the beautiful work that you do, where can they find you and your work?
ShannonHamaker.com. ShannonHam as in Mary, AKER.com. And there's one more thing I wanted to share. There's your ability to allow your partner to hold you in the big emotions of frustration and anger. It just helps the other side of that pendulum swing over to that ecstatic love, pleasure, all of that. And so that's just like dangling the carrot a little bit. That's it. That's all.
I love that. No, that was great. I love that. Well, Shannon, just thank you so much for your care, for the beautiful work that you do. I love everything that you shared today. So generous with your time. So I know we're going to meet again, even if we have to wait till Interfusion Festival 2026. I'm down for it. So I look forward to that.
Me too. Thanks, Kitty.
Thanks for tuning in to today's show. If you like what you heard, are struggling with some aspect of your relationships, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit to work with me as your relationship coach, here's what I invite you to do next. Head over to lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply. That's lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply and book a call to speak with me. I'll get on the phone with you for about 45 minutes and we'll get you crystal clear on 3 things. Number 1, exactly what's not working well in your relationships right now. Number 2, ideally where you'd like to be and what might be getting in the way. And number 3, the exact strategy to get you there, helping to close that gap. Remember, creating healthy, open relationships does not typically happen by itself. Many often need expert guidance to make it happen. We've helped clients all over the world to feel safe, happy, and secure in open relationships while not losing their mind or their cherished partners. To see if we can help you do the same, head over to lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply. I'm Kitty Chambliss, and let's talk soon.